Very good morning and welcome again. Today I shall speak of truth, not of any truth in particular, but Francis Bacon's of truth. Since we have already gone through another of Bacon's works, I suppose I need not further describe Bacon as an author. But for the time being, let me ask a question. What do we mean by an aphorism? Bacon's style is often described as the aphoristic style. So what do we usually mean by referring to this term aphorism? It's a short, pithy statement which encapsulates a large, great idea into the little space of a sentence in a matter of few words. So we find Bacon employing such a technique, such a kind of presentation in this essay as well. He begins by referring to Pontius Pilate and a question he asked jestingly. Pontius Pilate was one of the judges present at the trial of Jesus Christ and the subsequent crucifixion. Pontius Pilate jestingly asked, "What is truth?" and would not wait for an answer, implying, naturally, obviously, that such a question has no answer at all. But Bacon says, well, indeed, there were scholars in the past times, from the ancient times, who believed that truth is fixing of a belief which hinders man from acting upon his will, upon his free will. Though there are no more such scholars left, even now, at the current age, at the present moment, there are those who believe that truth is something that places limits on man's freedom of thought, of action. Anyway, but Bacon affirms that, well, the natural love for lie is what makes people favor a lie over truth. It's not for the labor, the great labor that one needs to attain truth, to search and find and, well, take possession of truth, or, understand truth, that impedes or stops man from loving truth rather than a lie. Men favor lie over truth for the very reason that they have a natural liking for lie. And on the other hand, the other paragraph, we find Bacon affirming that one could not say truth is a broad daylight. It is more of half so stately and daintily candle light rather than open daylight, which would unmask the fooleries, the pretensions of the world. So, on the other hand, Bacon says we could not compare truth equal to the value of a diamond or a carbuncle. Carbuncle is a red gem, bright red gem. So we could rather compare truth to a pearl which shines on the daylight, on the day, and not with a diamond or a carbuncle which would shine even more greatly, even more even better in darkness. Truth is not open daylight that doth not show the masks and mummeries and triumphs of the world, half so stately and daintily as candle lights. One cannot compare truth to open daylight so that it unmasks the pretensions and triumphs and all the goings on in the world. It's half so stately and daintily a candle light. It flickers and it shows light only to the close vicinity where it is placed. Truth may perhaps come to the price of a pearl that showed best by day, but it will not rise to the price of a diamond or a carbuncle, which shows best in varied lights. Diamond and carbuncle both are gems which shine in varied lights, in darkness as well, at night as well. Carbuncle is a bright red gem. And pearl does shine only in the daylight. One can compare truth only to the price of a pearl. A mixture of a lie doth ever add pleasure. Doth any man doubt that if there were taken out of men's minds vain opinions, flattering hopes, false valuations, imaginations as one would, and the like, but it would leave the minds of a number of men poor, shrunken things, full of melancholy and indisposition, and unpleasing to themselves. A mixture of a lie, a slight mixture of a lie into truth adds to its pleasure. That's what happens in poetry. So no one doubts that without hopes, without imagination, without vain opinions, flatterings, one would find life completely dull. And those who adhere obstinately to matter-of-factness and truth alone, the dry, barren truth alone, would find life difficult to deal with, and it would be a complete boredom. One of the fathers in great severity called poesy or poetry vinum daemonum, devil's wine. So Romans called poetry vinum daemonum, devil's wine, because it fills the imagination, and it is but with the shadow of a lie. So we find a slight mixing of a lie in poetry. It fills because it fills with imagination. But it is not the lie that passes through the mind, but the lie that sinks and settles in it, that doth hurt. Only the lie which settles and sinks deep into the mind hurts. The lie, the slight lies, little lies we find in poetry, they only pass through the mind, and they therefore do not hurt. Such as we spoke before. But howsoever these things are thus in men's depraved judgments and affections, yet truth, which only doth judge itself, teacheth that the inquiry of truth, which is the love-making or wooing of it, the knowledge of truth, which is the presence of it, and the belief of truth, which is the enjoying of it, is the sovereign good of human nature. Truth itself can judge truth. Whatsoever we would talk of truth, only truth can judge of itself. And it ascertains that, well, for human nature, the sole good is to seek truth, to pursue truth, to inquire truth, and which could be compared in turn to love-making or wooing of it. And knowledge of truth is the presence of it, and the belief of truth is the enjoyment of it. Then, the first creature of God in the works of days was the light of sense, and the last was the light of reason. And his Sabbath work ever since is the illumination of his spirit. God first created sense, and last he created reason. And first he breathed his light upon the face of matter and chaos, and then he breathed light into the face of man. And still, even now, he keeps on spreading or inspiring light upon chosen men. Open daylight. The poet that beautified the sect that was otherwise inferior to the rest, said yet excellently well. Here, the poet he refers to is Lucretius, a Roman poet who is famous for his didactic hexametric poem on the nature of things. It's a pleasure, Lucretius says, it's a pleasure to stand upon the shore and to see ships tossed upon the sea. A pleasure to stand in the window of a castle and to see a battle and adventures thereof below. But no pleasure is comparable to the standing upon the vantage ground of truth, a hill not to be commanded, and where the air is always clear and serene, and to see the errors and wanderings and mists and tempests in the vale below. It's indeed great to see from the shore, standing on the shore, a ship tossed upon the sea, and from a window to watch a battle and the adventures thereof we sigh over, but no pleasure in the world is comparable to standing on a vantage ground of truth, a hill not to be commanded and where the air is always clear and serene, and to see the errors and wanderings and mists and tempests in the vale below. So to stand in a high pinnacle, vantage ground here means the vantage ground of truth, which is high above the world. What happens in the world could be seen from that high point of truth, and when we look from that point, we wonder the errors that men make in the world below. So always this prospect be with pity and not with swelling pride. So this vision from the vantage ground of truth is not with pity. So it's not with swelling pride. It's with compassion. It will be acknowledged by even those who do not practice truth. Certainly, it's heaven upon earth to have man's mind move in charity, rest in providence, and turn upon the poles of truth. So once a person has attained the vantage ground of truth, to dwell in truth is heaven upon earth. Okay, it's great to be, great to live if one has attained, one has reached that high point of truth. To pass from the theological and philosophical truth to the truth of civil business, it will be acknowledged even by those that practice it not, that clear and wrong dealing is honor of man's nature, and that mixture of falsehood is like alloy in coin of gold and silver, which may make the metal work better, but it embaseth it. To move from philosophical and theological discourse of truth, one may shift one's focus. We find even people who do not practice truth admitting the fact that to be round and straight, clear in one's dealings, being truthful in one's deeds, especially in business. For these winding and crooked courses are the goings of a serpent. Okay, it's like the movement of a serpent crawling upon his belly and not walking up straight. Okay, it's not an honorable way of living. It's crawling upon one's own belly. There is no vice that doth so cover a man with shame as to be found false and perfidious. And therefore Montaigne said prettily, when he inquired the reason why the word of the lie should. For these windings and crooked courses are the goings of the serpent, which goeth basely upon the belly and not upon the feet. There's no vice that doth so cover a man with shame as to be found false and perfidious. So these crooked courses, roundabout courses people take in order to escape from the risks of truthfulness, risks of straightforwardness, is far more honorable than dealing things in a roundabout way. And mixture of a falsehood is like alloy in the coin of gold and silver, which may make the metal work better, but it embaseth it. Okay. A mixture of a lie in business would make things work better, like gold coins and silver coins when we make it of alloy, of a mixture of other metals. But even though it makes the metal work easier, it makes gold and silver impure. These are like the crawling of the serpent, which is most dishonorable, and it is not as walking up straight on one's own legs. Okay, it's not walking firmly on one's legs, than it is crawling upon one's belly. It's so dishonorable a thing. So there is no vice that doth so cover a man with shame as to be found out false and perfidious. It's the worst kind of shame. To be found out false, to be discovered deceitful and false, is the worst kind of shame one would have to endure in one's life. And therefore Montaigne said prettily, when he inquired the reason why the word of the lie should be such a disgrace and such an odious charge, saith he, if it be well weighed, to say that a man lieth is as much to say as that he is brave towards God and a coward towards men. When Montaigne, the great scholar of Roman times, the great thinker, when he inquired of the reason why the word of the lie should be such a disgrace and such an odious charge. To be charged of a lie, to be accused of having lied, is the most shameful kind of a charge. And the reason for it is, if it be well weighed, if we analyze it well, it would be revealed that to say a man lies is as much to say as that he is brave towards God and a coward towards men. People tell lies in fear of men, in fear of other people. But in the course of telling lies, they are facing straight to God. They are calling upon the last judgment of God upon them. Okay. For a lie faces God and shrinks from man. Surely the wickedness of falsehood and breach of faith cannot possibly go or so highly expressed, be so highly expressed as in that it shall be the last peal to call the judgments of God upon the generations of men. It being foretold that when Christ comes, he shall not find faith upon the earth. So it refers to the second coming. It's something that refers to the coming of the Antichrist. Okay, in the Christian belief, we have the coming of the Antichrist as an event near to the doomsday. So Antichrist comes to make a last judgment upon the souls waiting for judgment. So when he comes, it is foretold that he shall not find faith upon the earth. When people start to tell lies, when the world itself goes further and further into the world of lies, it would be a decline of faith. Okay, and telling of lies, lie itself would be ultimately judged by God. Okay, so by telling lies, we are escaping from men, the risks of the world, and we are facing straight towards the mercy of God. Okay, we are at the mercy of God. God shall ultimately pass judgment upon those who lie. So that's it. Thank you.